You know what's worse than finding out your wife cheated on you? Having your own daughter look you in the eye and tell you she's glad it happened. My name is Mike Harris, and I'm 42 years old. That moment, when Carla chose Sally's side, when she told me I deserved the betrayal, it didn't break me. It hardened me. I realized then that being a good father, a loyal husband, a provider who worked 60-hour weeks to give them everything they wanted, meant nothing if they could justify destroying me the moment it became convenient. I stopped being a victim that day. 3 years passed. I rebuilt my life, found a woman who actually valued me, built something real with her and her sons. I learned that sometimes the people who share your blood are the most dangerous ones to keep close. Then Carla appeared at my door, broke and desperate, wanting the daddy she'd thrown away. But let me start from the beginning. Before I go any further, let me know in the comments where in the world you are watching from, and make sure to subscribe, because tomorrow I will share a story you don't want to miss. I came home early from the construction site that Tuesday because I'd forgotten my blueprints. I'd been pouring a foundation on the Riverside development, 20 custom homes, biggest contract I'd landed in 5 years, and I needed those plans to walk the client through some modifications he'd requested. The house should have been empty. Sally taught yoga until 6 every Tuesday and Thursday. Carla was supposed to be at State, 2 hours away, buried in her sophomore year coursework. But when I walked through the front door, I heard sounds from upstairs. Laughter. My wife's laughter. That breathy giggle she used to make when we were dating, mixed with a man's voice I didn't recognize. Low, smooth, confident in a way that made my stomach drop. My gut knew before my brain caught up. 20 years of marriage, you develop instincts about these things. I took the stairs fast, work boots heavy on the carpet. Each step felt like walking toward a cliff edge, knowing I was about to see something that would change everything, but unable to stop myself from looking. The bedroom door hung half open. I shoved it wide. Sally was in our bed, the bed I'd surprised her with on our 15th anniversary, the expensive pillow-top mattress she'd begged for, with some guy I'd never seen before. Younger, maybe early 30s, with slicked-back hair and an athletic build. He wore that smug grin confident men get when they think they're getting away with something. The grin evaporated the second he saw me. They scrambled apart like guilty teenagers caught by parents. The sheet tangled around them, their clothes scattered across the floor I'd walked across every morning for 10 years. "Mike!" Sally gasped, clutching the sheet to her chest like modesty mattered now. I looked at the man, really looked at him. He had the physique of someone who spent hours at the gym, the kind of shallow vanity I'd always dismissed as wasteful. His eyes darted toward his clothes, calculating escape routes. "Get out!" I said, voice like ice. "Now!" He grabbed his clothes, stumbling as he tried to pull on his pants, hopping on one foot. "Look, man, I didn't—" "I said get out!" The shout came from somewhere deep, somewhere primal. He ran, half-dressed, shoes in hand. I heard him stumble on the stairs, heard the front door slam maybe 30 seconds later. Sally sat there, sheet pulled high, mascara smudged down her cheeks. She'd been crying earlier, I realized, before I interrupted. Maybe tears of passion, maybe guilt. I didn't care which. She had the nerve to look annoyed instead of ashamed, like I was the problem for coming home early, for catching her. "Mike, if you'd just let me explain." "Explain?" I laughed, bitter and sharp enough to cut. "Explain what, Sally? That you've been screwing some random guy in our bed, the bed where we built our life, where we conceived our daughter?" The mention of Carla made her flinch, but not enough. "You're never here," she shot back, suddenly on offense like this was a debate she could win. "You work 60-hour weeks, come home exhausted. We haven't been intimate in months. So you decided to fix our marriage by spreading your legs for a stranger?" I stepped closer, and she actually flinched backward, pulling the sheet tighter. Good. Let her feel a fraction of the violation I was feeling. How long? Mike. How? Long. 6 months, she whispered. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Of her kissing me goodbye in the morning while texting him during the day. Of me pouring concrete and swinging hammers and managing crews in 100-degree heat to pay for this house, for her yoga studio, for Carla's college tuition, while she played house with her boy toy. I remembered the second mortgage I'd taken out 18 months ago to fund that studio. The yoga studio she'd begged me for, promised would make her happy, would fulfill her. I'd worked extra jobs to cover those payments, and this is what she'd done with her newfound fulfillment. His name is Dennis Ruiz, she continued, voice small, like offering details would somehow make this better. He's a personal trainer at the gym near my studio. It just happened. Nothing just happens, Sally. You made a choice. Every single time you met him, every lie you told, every time you looked me in the eye and pretended everything was fine, those were choices. Deliberate choices to betray me. She started crying harder now. Real tears or performance, I couldn't tell anymore. Maybe I never could. I want a divorce, I said flatly. Mike, please, we can work through this. There's no we anymore. You destroyed that. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. Tomorrow I'm calling a lawyer. And when I'm done, you'll wish you'd kept your legs closed and your vows sacred. I turned to leave, needing distance before I said something worse, something I couldn't take back. Carla's going to hear about this, Sally said, voice suddenly harder, threatening. I looked back at her, this stranger wearing my wife's face. Yeah, she will. And she'll hear the truth, that her mother is a cheating liar who destroyed her family for cheap thrills. Carla came home that evening around 7. 19 years old, sophomore at State, my little girl who used to fall asleep on my chest watching old Disney movies on Saturday mornings. I could still remember the weight of her, the trust in how she'd curl up against me, completely safe in her daddy's arms. I'd texted her 2 hours ago. Need you home? Family meeting? Important. She'd responded with a question mark, but nothing else. Now she walked into the living room where Sally and I sat on opposite ends of the couch, the space between us a canyon that might as well have been the Grand Canyon. Sally had changed clothes, fixed her makeup, composed herself into the picture of wounded dignity. What's going on? Carla asked, dropping her backpack by the door. She looked between us, reading the tension. Is someone sick? Your father is divorcing me, Sally said before I could open my mouth, voice dripping with victimhood, with martyrdom. He's decided our marriage is over. Just like that. That's a damned lie, I started. Because of one mistake, Sally continued, dabbing at her eyes with a tissue she'd had ready, like she'd been practicing this performance. One mistake, and he won't even try to save 20 years. Won't even consider counseling or working through it. Carla's eyes widened, confusion and alarm spreading across her face. What mistake? What happened? Your mother had an affair, I said flatly, before Sally could spin it further. For 6 months. I caught them in our bed this afternoon. In our marital bed. I watched my daughter's face cycle through emotions. Shock first, her mouth opening slightly, then confusion, her eyebrows drawing together as she tried to process what I'd said. Then something I didn't expect, something that made my stomach drop. She looked at Sally, then at me, and her expression hardened into something cold. How long have you been emotionally checked out, Dad? I blinked, certain I'd heard wrong. What? Mom's been miserable for years. Carla's voice wasn't sympathetic to me. It was accusing. You work constantly. You never take her on dates. You fall asleep during movies. When was the last time you actually paid attention to her? Really paid attention? I've been working to pay for this house, I said, disbelief making my voice rise. For her studio, for your college education. Oh, so it's about money? Carla's voice climbed to match mine. You think working hard gives you a pass on being a husband? On being present? On being emotionally available? Your mother cheated on me, Carla. I pronounced each word carefully, trying to make her understand the fundamental truth she seemed to be missing. She broke her vows. She betrayed our family. She destroyed our marriage. People don't cheat in a vacuum, Dad. She crossed her arms, stance defiant, like we were arguing about her curfew instead of her mother's adultery. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have needed to find happiness somewhere else. The words hit like a sledgehammer to the chest, driving the air from my lungs. You're defending her? My voice cracked, despite my best effort. I'm the villain here. I'm the one at fault. I'm saying maybe you should look at your part in this before you blow up our family over your wounded pride. Sally was crying harder now, and Carla moved across the room to sit beside her mother, putting an arm around her shoulders in solidarity, in protection. Against me. I didn't blow anything up, I said, standing because sitting felt like surrender. Your mother made that choice when she decided some gym rat was more important than her marriage vows, more important than her family, more important than 2 decades of building a life together. See? Carla glared up at me, eyes blazing with misplaced righteousness, with judgment. This is exactly what I mean. You're so cold, Dad. So angry all the time. Mom needed warmth, affection, someone who actually saw her instead of just seeing a wife-shaped object filling a role. I saw her every damn day. The roar came from somewhere deep, somewhere beyond my control. I saw her when I kissed her goodbye at dawn, before heading to job sites, when I asked about her day every evening, when I supported her dream of opening that studio, even though we had to take out a second mortgage that I worked 60-hour weeks to pay for, when I worked until my back ached and my hands bled to give you both everything you wanted. I saw her. But did you really? Carla stood, facing me down without a trace of fear or doubt. Or did you just see someone filling a role, going through motions without actually connecting? I stared at this person in front of me. This stranger, wearing my daughter's face, speaking poison disguised as wisdom. You know what? I said, voice dropping to something quiet and dangerous. If that's how you see it, if you genuinely think I'm the villain in your mother's affair, then we have nothing left to discuss. Your mother and I are getting divorced. You can choose whose side you're on, but understand this. There are sides now, clear sides, and you're choosing to stand with a cheater and a liar. Then I choose Mom, Carla said without hesitation, without even a pause to consider. I'm glad she found someone who makes her happy. She deserves that after years of being neglected. And honestly, Dad, maybe this is for the best. Maybe you both need to move on and find people who actually appreciate you. The words hung in the air like poison gas, choking me. Get out, I said quietly. What? You heard me. If you think your mother's affair is justified, if you think I'm the problem here, then get out of my house. Now. This is Mom's house, too. Not for long. And you just made your choice crystal clear. So go, pack a bag, and go live with Mommy and her boyfriend. See how long that happiness lasts when reality hits and he gets bored. Carla grabbed her backpack, face twisted with contempt and teenage certainty. Fine, but don't come crying to me when you realize you destroyed this family over your fragile ego and wounded pride. I didn't destroy anything, I said, each word deliberate and cold. Your mother did that when she spread her legs for another man. And you? You just torched a bridge I will never rebuild. I hope siding with a cheater was worth losing your father. Because that's exactly what just happened here. You lost me. Forever. Good, she spat, venom in every syllable. I don't need a father who can't even keep his wife happy, who drives people away with his coldness. She slammed the door hard enough to rattle the frame, hard enough that I heard a picture fall off the hallway wall. Sally looked at me through her tears, mascara streaking her carefully composed face. "You just drove our daughter away." "No," I said, voice cold as January frost. "You did. The moment you brought another man into our bed. Everything that happens from here, every consequence, every bit of pain, every relationship that breaks, is on you. Both of you. And I'm done being the villain in your twisted story, where the cheater gets sympathy, and the faithful husband gets blamed." I went to the guest room and locked the door, my daughter's words echoing in my head like torture. "I'm glad she found someone who makes her happy. You destroyed this family. I don't need a father who can't keep his wife happy." I sat on the edge of the bed in the dark, hands shaking, and wondered how the hell my entire life had imploded in less than 12 hours. I hired Jacob Morrison the next morning. Didn't even wait for the sun to fully rise before I was on the phone. Best divorce attorney in town. A shark with a reputation for eviscerating cheating spouses in court. His retainer alone cost me $5,000, but it was worth every damn penny. "She had an affair," I told him during our first meeting, sliding a thick folder across his mahogany desk. 6 months with Dennis Ruiz. I have proof. Text messages I recovered from her iPad before she could delete them. Credit card statements showing hotel charges on days she claimed she was working late at the studio. And testimony from a private investigator I hired yesterday afternoon. Jacob flipped through the documents, his expression shifting from professional interest to predatory satisfaction with each page. "This is excellent work, Mike. Truly excellent. California is no fault for divorce, which means adultery alone won't end the marriage faster, but it absolutely impacts spousal support and asset division. With this evidence, we can argue she abandoned the marriage emotionally and financially, that she wasted marital assets on the affair. I want her to get as little as legally possible," I said flatly. "I don't care what it costs me in attorney fees. I want her to walk away with nothing but regret." "We'll make it hurt," Jacob promised, and his cold smile told me he meant every word. The divorce was brutal. Scorched earth on both sides. Sally hired Barry Gomez, some bleeding-heart lawyer who specialized in protecting vulnerable women in divorce proceedings. He tried painting Sally as a victim of emotional neglect, of a workaholic husband who'd abandoned her emotionally for years. He claimed she'd been driven into another man's arms by my coldness, my absence, my failure to meet her needs. But my evidence was nuclear. During depositions, Dennis Ruiz, that smug bastard who'd been sleeping with my wife, admitted under oath that Sally had told him I was basically a roommate, and that the marriage had been dead for years. He admitted they'd been intimate 20 to 30 times over the 6-month affair. He admitted that, yes, they'd used hotels that Sally paid for with our joint credit card. And yes, they'd had sex in my house at least twice while I was working 12-hour days to keep the bills paid. Watching Sally's face during that deposition was almost worth the pain. Almost. Her lawyer tried claiming she deserved half of everything. Half the house, half my retirement accounts, half my construction business that I'd built from nothing with my own hands and sweat. Jacob laughed in Barry Gomez's face during mediation. Your client committed adultery and wasted marital assets on hotels and gifts for her paramour, Jacob said, voice like ice cutting through Gomez's arguments. She used marital funds to finance an affair while my client worked 60-hour weeks to support the household. Furthermore, my client built his construction business 3 years before the marriage, and we have meticulous financial records proving it's separate property. She contributed nothing to its growth, nothing to its success. She's entitled to exactly nothing from it. The negotiations were vicious. Barry tried every angle, claiming Sally had supported my career ambitions by handling the home, that she deserved compensation for sacrificing her own dreams, that the yoga studio only existed because I'd encouraged her to open it. Jacob destroyed every argument with documentation, with bank statements showing I'd paid every mortgage payment, every utility bill, every expense, while Sally's studio barely broke even, with testimony from my business partner confirming the company's pre-marital origins, with the affair evidence showing exactly what Sally had been doing while claiming to work late. In the end, the settlement was clear and final. Sally got the yoga studio, mortgaged to hell, barely profitable, and saddled with equipment loans she'd taken out without telling me. She got a spousal support payment of exactly $1,200 a month for precisely 3 years, the minimum the judge would allow, given the length of the marriage. After that, nothing. I kept the house, my business, my retirement accounts, my truck, everything I'd built with my own hands before Sally ever entered my life, everything I'd protected during it. Most importantly, I kept my self-respect. She moved into a cramped 2-bedroom apartment with Dennis 2 weeks after the divorce finalized. I heard through mutual friends that the place was in a rough neighborhood, that Dennis's personal trainer's salary barely covered his half of rent, that Sally was working double shifts at the studio trying to make ends meet. Good. Let her see what happiness with her affair partner actually looked like when reality hit. Carla didn't call, didn't text, didn't reach out even once during the entire 6-month divorce process. Complete radio silence. Perfect. If that's how she wanted it, fine by me. She'd made her choice when she told me I deserved to be cheated on, when she chose her mother's lies over her father's truth. She'd burned that bridge to ash, and I had zero interest in rebuilding it. Life got better. Slowly at first, then with gathering momentum that surprised me. I threw myself into work, like a man possessed. Expanded my construction business from 1 crew to 4. Took on projects I would have turned down before because they seemed too ambitious, too risky. But risk didn't scare me anymore. Betrayal had already shown me the worst that could happen, and I'd survived it. Money poured in. Commercial builds downtown, residential developments in the hills, a massive contract to renovate the old courthouse that had been sitting empty for a decade. My company went from comfortable to thriving to downright prosperous in the span of 18 months. I also started therapy with Dr. Lainey Peters, a no-nonsense woman in her 50s who came recommended by Jacob Morrison. She had steel gray hair, sharp eyes, and zero tolerance for self-pity. "You were betrayed by the 2 people who should have protected you most," she said during our 3rd session. "Your wife and your daughter. That's double trauma, Mike. Compounded betrayal from both your partner and your child. You're allowed to be furious about that." "I am furious," I admitted, the words coming easier in her office than anywhere else. "Some days, I wake up angry, go to bed angry, spend the whole damn day angry." Good. That's healthy, believe it or not. Anger is appropriate when you've been wronged. The question is, what you do with it. She leaned forward. Channel it. Build something. Don't let them take more from you than they already stole. They took your marriage and your daughter. Don't let them take your future too. So I did exactly that. I built. Not just buildings. I rebuilt myself from the ground up, brick by brick, choice by choice. I started going to the gym at 5 a.m., working out the rage with weights and cardio until my muscles burned and my mind quieted. I bought new clothes, updated my wardrobe from construction casual to something that fit the successful businessman I was becoming. I sold the old house, too many memories, too many ghosts, and bought land in the hills where I could design and build exactly what I wanted. After a year of therapy and self-work, I started dating casually. Nothing serious at first, just dinners and movies, getting used to being single again after 20 years of marriage, remembering how to talk to women who weren't Sally, who didn't carry her baggage or her lies. Then I met Joanna Davis at a charity gala. One of my commercial clients dragged me to. She was 40 years old, a successful real estate agent with billboards all over town. Sharp features, confident posture, expensive suit that said she didn't need anyone's approval. When she laughed at something her colleague said, it was genuine and loud. Not the practiced, demure laugh Sally had perfected for social occasions. "You're Mike Harris," she said, walking up to me at the bar with a directness I appreciated. "Owner of Harris Construction. I've sold 3 houses in your Riverside development. Beautiful work. Quality craftsmanship that's rare these days. Thanks. You're Joanna Davis. I've seen your billboards all over the East Side." She laughed, self-deprecating and real. "Guilty as charged. Those photos are 10 years and 20 pounds ago, but they get results. Vanity in service of commerce." We talked for 2 hours, long after the speeches ended and the silent auction closed. She told me about her ex-husband. Classic midlife crisis story. Cheated with his secretary. Tried blaming Joanna for his choices. Tried claiming she'd been too focused on her career. Too independent. Not feminine enough. He wanted a wife who'd shrink herself to make him feel bigger, she said, swirling her wine. "I wanted a partner who could handle a woman with ambition. Turns out, we wanted different things." I told her about Sally, about the affair, the divorce, the evidence, and depositions and final settlement. Then I told her about Carla. Your daughter said, "What?" Joanna's eyes went wide with genuine shock and anger on my behalf. That she was glad her mother cheated. That I deserved it because I worked too much. Wasn't romantic enough. Was emotionally checked out. The words still tasted like poison. She chose Sally's side. Completely. Told me I destroyed the family over my pride. Jesus Christ, Mike! I'm so sorry. That's... She shook her head, struggling for words. "That's unforgivable. From both of them, but especially from your daughter." "It is what it is," I said, the phrase automatic after 3 years. "No." Joanna's voice turned firm, brooking no argument. "It's not what it is. It's what they made it. Through their deliberate choices. Through Sally's affair and your daughter's betrayal. And you didn't deserve any of it. Not one damn bit." I fell a little bit in love with her right then. We started dating seriously 6 months later, after dozens of dinners and long conversations and slow trust building. She was everything Sally wasn't. Present, honest, supportive, fiercely loyal. She didn't worship me or put me on some pedestal, but she saw me. Really saw me. The good, the damaged, the angry parts I was still healing. Her sons, Anthony and Caleb, were good kids, 16 and 14 when I met them. Respectful and smart without being perfect angels. They called me Mr. Harris for the first month, until Joanna finally told them to knock it off. "Just Mike," I said during a weekend barbecue at my new place. "You sure?" Anthony asked, glancing at his mother. "Mom's pretty serious about you. Seems weird to call you just Mike." "I'm serious about her too, kid. So yeah, just Mike works fine." Life was good. Better than good, actually. I had a thriving business pulling in more money than I'd ever imagined. I had a woman I loved who actually loved me back, who showed up and stayed present and didn't play games. I had her kids who respected me and seemed to genuinely enjoy having me around. I bought the new house in the hills. Modern design, floor-to-ceiling windows, a view that stretched for miles. Joanna and the boys spent most weekends there, and it started feeling like home in a way the old house never had. I didn't think about Sally or Carla much anymore. When I did, it was with a dull ache I'd learned to live with, like an old injury that hurt when the weather changed but didn't stop me from moving forward. 3 years passed like that. 3 years of building and healing and loving and growing. 3 years of peace. It was a Saturday morning in November when someone knocked on my door. I was making coffee. Joanna still asleep upstairs. The boys at their dad's place for the weekend. Quiet house, peaceful morning. The kind of simple contentment I'd built over 3 years of deliberate choices. I opened the door. Carla stood there. She looked nothing like the confident 19-year-old who'd told me I deserved betrayal. 22 now, rail-thin, with dark circles carved under her eyes like bruises. Her clothes hung loose, jeans that had seen better days, a jacket with a frayed collar, sneakers held together with duct tape. A single ratty duffel bag sat at her feet, bulging and beaten. "Hi, Dad," she said quietly, voice small and uncertain. I stared at her, coffee mug frozen halfway to my mouth, and felt nothing. No surge of paternal instinct rushing to the surface. No overwhelming relief or joy at seeing her. Just cold, clinical assessment of the situation. "Carla, can I come in? Please." Every instinct screamed at me to slam the door in her face the way she'd slammed it on our relationship 3 years ago, to tell her to get lost and never come back. But I was curious, despite myself. Why now? Why, after 3 years of complete silence? Where was her precious mother? Where was all that happiness she'd been so glad Sally found? I stepped aside without speaking, gesturing her in with a curt nod. She walked past me slowly, looking around at the new house with wide eyes, the open floor plan, the modern furniture, the framed photos of me and Joanna and her boys, the life I'd built brick by brick without her. Her face showed shock, maybe hurt, like she'd expected to find me broken and waiting for her return. "Nice place," she said weakly, trying for normalcy. "What do you want, Carla?" Straight to the point. No pleasantries, no how are yous, no pretending this was some happy reunion. I need help, Dad." "With what?" "Everything." Her voice cracked like thin ice. "Dad, I'm broke. I had to drop out of school last semester. I've been couch surfing for 2 months, staying with friends until they get tired of me. I don't have anywhere else to go. I don't have anyone else." "Where's your mother?" I asked flatly. "Where's Dennis? Where's all that happiness you were so glad she found? The happiness you said she deserved after being married to such a terrible husband?" Carla's face crumpled like paper. "Mom and Dennis broke up over a year ago. She moved to Arizona with some guy she met online, some accountant named Rick. She told me I was old enough to take care of myself and that she needed to find her happiness without being weighed down. I let that sink in, savoring the bitter irony. Sally had abandoned our daughter to chase another man, another relationship, another shot at whatever fantasy she'd convinced herself she deserved. Poetic justice didn't even begin to cover it. "And you didn't think to call me before now?" I asked, voice hard. 3 years of absolute silence, and you show up on my doorstep only when you're desperate and out of options. "I was ashamed," Carla whispered, tears starting to track down her hollow cheeks. "After everything I said to you, after choosing her side, after telling you those horrible things, I didn't think you'd want to hear from me. I figured you hated me. You were right about that." She looked up, tears streaming freely now, desperation naked on her face. "Dad, please. I know I screwed up. I know I said horrible, unforgivable things, but I'm your daughter. I need you. I have nowhere else to turn." "No," I said flatly, voice like a judge delivering sentence. "You stopped being my daughter 3 years ago, Carla. You made that choice yourself when you told me I deserved to be cheated on. When you said you were glad your mother betrayed me. When you chose a lying cheater over your father who'd given you everything. I was 19. I was stupid. Mom manipulated me. She told me lies about you. You were old enough to know right from wrong." I cut her off sharply, not letting her rewrite history. "You were old enough to see your mother's affair for exactly what it was, a disgusting, selfish betrayal of everything our family stood for. But instead of standing by me, instead of seeing through her manipulation, you blamed me. You made me the villain in a story where I was the victim, where your mother was screwing another man in our marital bed, while I worked myself to exhaustion providing for you both. "I'm sorry," she sobbed, voice breaking. "I'm so sorry." Sorry doesn't fix 3 years of silence, Carla. Sorry doesn't erase you telling me I deserve to be betrayed. Sorry doesn't rebuild the relationship you burned to ashes and then pissed on the remains. So that's it? Her voice rose with panic. You're just going to turn me away, let me be homeless, your own daughter? I looked at this broken woman standing in my living room, this stranger who happened to share my DNA, and felt absolutely nothing but cold resolve. "Yeah," I said simply. "That's exactly it." My mother called that afternoon. Word traveled fast in families, apparently, even broken ones. "Michael, your daughter came to you for help, and you slammed the door in her face?" Her voice carried that particular disappointed tone she'd perfected over decades of motherhood. "She stopped being my daughter 3 years ago, Mom," I said, pulling into my office parking lot. When I needed her support, when my wife had just destroyed our marriage with an affair, Carla chose the cheater's side. She looked me in the eye and told me I deserved to be betrayed. She was young. She was 19. I cut her off. Old enough to vote, old enough to sign contracts, old enough to understand that affairs destroy families. She made her choice, with full knowledge of what she was doing. I'm not obligated to save her from the consequences of that choice. But she's your flesh and blood. Blood doesn't give someone unlimited chances to hurt you, Mom. I parked and killed the engine, phone pressed to my ear. She had her chance to be my daughter. She used it to stab me in the back while I was already bleeding. Told me her mother's affair partner probably made her happier than I ever could. Those were her words. Her choice. I'm done paying for other people's choices to destroy me. Michael, she's suffering. So was I. For 3 years I suffered while she said nothing. Didn't call, didn't text, didn't check if I was alive or dead. Now she's suffering, and suddenly I'm supposed to forget everything? No, that's not how this works. You're being cruel. I'm being protective, I corrected. Of myself. Something I should have learned to do a long time ago. Carla burned that bridge, Mom. She doesn't get to rebuild it just because it's convenient for her now. My mother sighed, heavy with disappointment. I hope you don't regret this decision, Michael. I won't. The only thing I regret is not cutting toxic people out of my life sooner. She hung up without saying goodbye. I sat in my truck for a moment, waiting to feel guilt or doubt or something. Nothing came. Just calm certainty that I'd made the right call. Joanna was more understanding that evening when we sat on the back deck watching the sunset paint the hills orange and purple. The boys were inside playing video games, their laughter drifting through the open windows. "I can't imagine how you feel," she said, hand wrapped around her wine glass. "If Anthony or Caleb said something like that to me, I honestly don't know if I could ever forgive them." "The thing is," I said, staring out at the view I'd worked my ass off to afford, "she hasn't actually apologized. Not really. She said she was sorry, sure, but only because she needed something from me. The second I said no, the second I wasn't useful to her anymore, she told me she hated me. Same anger, same blame, just redirected. Nothing's actually changed except her circumstances. So, what are you going to do?" "Nothing." I meant every word I said to her. She's not my problem. She made her bed when she chose Sally's lies over her father's truth. Now she can lie in it. I'm not rescuing someone who pushed me off a cliff and is now surprised I won't climb back up to catch her when she falls. Joanna squeezed my hand. "You're allowed to protect yourself. You know that, right?" "I do now. Took me long enough to learn it. We sat in comfortable silence as the sun disappeared behind the hills. 2 weeks later, Carla showed up at my construction office downtown. Nellie buzzed my desk. "There's a young woman here claiming to be your daughter. Should I send her in or call security?" I closed my eyes, counted to 5. "Send her in." Carla walked into my office looking slightly better than she had at my house. Cleaner clothes, at least, hair brushed, like someone had given her a place to shower. Still too thin, still hollow-eyed, but marginally more put together. "What do you want, Carla?" She hovered near the door like she was afraid to come too close. "I got a job, waitressing at a diner on 5th Street. It's not much, but it's something. And I'm staying at a women's shelter until I can save enough for my own place." "Good for you." She blinked, clearly expecting more. "That's it? Just good for you? What do you want me to say? Congratulations on doing what you should have been doing all along? You're 22 years old, Carla. Getting a job and supporting yourself is basic adult responsibility. You don't get special credit for that. I thought maybe you'd care that I'm trying." "I did care," I said flatly. 3 years ago, I cared very much. When you told me I deserved to be betrayed because I worked too hard to provide for my family, you killed that caring part of me. Dead. Buried. You can't resurrect it by getting a minimum wage job and crashing at a shelter." Her face crumpled. "So there's really no way back? No path to forgiveness? Ever? You want the truth?" I leaned back in my chair, hands folded on my desk. "No. There's no way back. You didn't just hurt me, Carla. You betrayed me at my absolute lowest point. My wife had just destroyed our marriage, and instead of supporting me, you sided with the woman who brought another man into our bed. That's not something you come back from. That's not fixable. I was manipulated by Mom." "You were old enough to think for yourself," I interrupted. "You chose not to. You chose to believe her lies because it was easier than facing the truth about what she'd done. That choice? That's on you. Not her. You. So I'm just supposed to accept that you'll never forgive me? That I've lost my father? Forever?" "Yes. Accept it and move on with your life. Build something that doesn't involve me, because I'm certainly building a life that doesn't involve you. I have Joanna, I have her boys, I have my business, I'm happy. You're not part of that happiness, and you never will be again." She stood there crying, shoulders shaking. Part of me, a very small, distant part, remembered the little girl who used to run into my arms when I came home from work. That memory felt like it belonged to someone else's life. "I just wanted you to know I'm trying," she whispered. "I heard you. Now leave. I have actual work to do." She left, stumbling slightly as she went. I watched her go, then went back to reviewing blueprints for the medical complex expansion, feeling nothing but relief when she was finally gone. A month later, my phone rang with a number I didn't recognize. Against my better judgment, I answered. "Mike? It's Sally." My hand tightened on the phone. I almost hung up right then. Almost. "What do you want? Carla told me you turned her away. She's living in a shelter, Mike. Our daughter is homeless. And whose fault is that, Sally?" I cut her off, voice cold. "Where were you when she needed help?" "Oh, right. Arizona. Chasing your next man while abandoning our daughter. You told her she was old enough to take care of herself, remember? So she could chase her happiness without the inconvenience of a kid slowing her down? That's not fair. No, you know what's not fair. Having your wife cheat on you for 6 months, then having your daughter look you in the eye and tell you that you deserved it, that you worked too much, that you weren't romantic enough. That's not fair. You both made your choices. Now, deal with the consequences. She's your daughter." "No," I said flatly. "She was my daughter. Past tense. She ended that relationship the day she chose your affair over her father. I'm just respecting her decision." "You're being cruel. She was 19. She made a mistake." I'm being protective, I interrupted, of myself. Something I should have done years ago instead of working myself to exhaustion for a wife who was spreading her legs for her personal trainer while I paid for her yoga studio. God, you're such a bastard. No, Sally. I'm someone who finally learned that loyalty is earned, not owed. That blood doesn't give you unlimited chances to destroy someone. You taught me that lesson when you brought Dennis into our bed. Carla reinforced it when she told me I deserved your betrayal. So, thanks for the education. Really valuable. She needs you. She needed me 3 years ago. She chose you instead. Now she's getting exactly what she chose. A mother who abandons her the second it's convenient. How's that working out for her? You're going to let your own child be homeless out of spite? Out of self-preservation, I corrected. There's a difference. Spite would mean I'm trying to hurt her. I'm not. I'm just protecting myself from someone who's already proven she'll hurt me when it benefits her. That's called learning from experience. If you don't help her, I'll never forgive you. I laughed, bitter and sharp. Your forgiveness? I don't want your forgiveness, Sally. I don't want anything from you. You're the woman who destroyed our family, poisoned our daughter against me, then abandoned her when she became inconvenient. Your opinion means less than nothing to me. She could end up on the streets. Then maybe she'll learn what I learned. That you can't count on people just because you share DNA with them. That family is about loyalty and trust, not biology. You both taught me that. Now she gets to learn it too. I hope you can live with yourself, Sally said, voice thick with manufactured hurt. I can, I said honestly. I sleep just fine these days. Better than I did when I was married to a cheater. Better than I did when my daughter told me I deserved to be betrayed. So yeah, I can live with this decision just fine. I hung up before she could respond. Joanna found me in the garage an hour later, working on my truck with more force than necessary, taking out my anger on a stubborn bolt. Sally called? She guessed, sitting on my workbench. Yeah, trying to guilt me about Carla. Said I'm being cruel for not helping her. Are you? Joanna asked gently. Being cruel? No, I'm being smart. Carla only came to me when she hit rock bottom and needed something. That's not reconciliation. That's opportunism. She had 3 years to apologize, to reach out, to rebuild. She only showed up when she was desperate. I'm not falling for that manipulation. You're absolutely right, Joanna said firmly. But you're also hurt. And that's okay too. I'm not hurt, I said, but my voice lacked conviction. I'm done. There's a difference. Joanna slid off the workbench, came over and wrapped her arms around me from behind. It's okay to be both, you know. Done and hurt. They're not mutually exclusive. I put down my wrench, let myself lean into her embrace for a moment. But some nights, lying awake while Joanna slept beside me, I wondered if that was entirely true. Joanna and I got engaged at Christmas. Nothing fancy, nothing elaborate, just us and her boys around the tree in our living room, warm light from the fireplace casting shadows on the walls. I'd been planning it for weeks, but in the moment, the prepared speech evaporated. I just got down on one knee, pulled out the ring, and spoke from the heart. I know we both come with baggage, I said, looking up at her. Scars and damage, and all the messy stuff that comes from broken marriages. But you've made me happier than I thought possible after everything fell apart. You see me, really see me, and you still choose to be here. Will you marry me? Yes, she said, crying and laughing at the same time, pulling me up to kiss her. Yes, absolutely, yes. Anthony and Caleb cheered, clapping and whooping like we just won the Super Bowl. Anthony shook my hand with genuine warmth. Caleb hugged me. It felt right. Not like the first time, which had been full of nerves and uncertainty. This felt solid, real, built on honesty instead of illusions. We planned a spring wedding. Small, Intimate, close friends and family only. Nothing extravagant. Joanna and I had both done the big wedding thing before. This time, we wanted something that actually meant something. I didn't invite Carla. Didn't even consider it. My mother brought it up 2 weeks before the ceremony. "You're really not inviting your daughter to your wedding?" "I don't have a daughter, Mom. I have an ex-daughter who told me I deserved to be betrayed, who sided with a cheater, who only came back when she needed something. She's not welcome at my wedding." "Michael, she's still your child." "No, she stopped being my child when she made her choice. This wedding is about building something new with people who actually value me. Carla doesn't fit that description. You'll regret this someday." "Maybe," I said honestly, "but it'll be my regret, on my terms, not someone else's guilt trip forcing me into something I don't want." My mother didn't bring it up again. The wedding day arrived, late April, perfect weather, clear skies. The ceremony was in Joanna's parents' backyard. 50 guests max, string lights hanging from the trees. Simple and honest, just like us. I stood at the altar watching Joanna walk toward me in a simple cream dress, and I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Pure, uncomplicated happiness. No anxiety about what she might be hiding. No fear that this was built on lies. Just genuine joy. We said our vows, the traditional ones, but they meant something different now. For better or worse, carried weight when you'd already survived worse. In sickness and in health, mattered when you'd watched someone abandon you at your sickest point. "I do," I said, and meant it completely. "I do," she said, tears streaming down her face. We kissed, and our guests cheered, and it was perfect. The reception was at a nice restaurant downtown, intimate dinner with our closest people. I looked around the room, real friends who'd supported me through the divorce, family who'd stood by me, Joanna's boys who'd accepted me into their lives, people who'd proven their loyalty through actions, not just words. No Sally, no Carla, no ghosts from the past haunting what we were building. I was giving my thank you speech, glass raised, when my phone buzzed in my pocket. I ignored it. Then it buzzed again, and again. During a quiet moment between courses, I checked it. Unknown number. 3 missed calls. 1 voicemail. Against better judgment, I stepped outside and listened to the message. "Dad?" Carla's voice, thick with tears and something else. Pain. "I'm in the hospital. There was a car accident. I'm okay, mostly, but I needed to tell someone. You're still my emergency contact from before. I needed you to know." My blood went cold, despite the warm evening air. I called the number back. She answered on the first ring. "Dad? How bad is it?" I asked, voice flat. "Broken arm, concussion, some bruising. They're keeping me overnight for observation, but I'll be okay. The doctor said I was lucky." "Good. I'm glad you're not seriously hurt. Now update your emergency contact information." Silence on her end. "Dad, I know you're angry, but I almost died tonight." "But you didn't." I cut her off. "You're fine. You're in a hospital getting care. So update your contacts and don't call this number again. Please, I just need—" "I'm at my wedding reception, Carla. I'm marrying Joanna. I'm building a new life with people who actually stood by me when things got hard. And there's no room in that life for someone who abandoned me at my lowest point. I almost died. And I almost lost everything when your mother cheated, and you told me I deserved it. We both survived our traumas. The difference is, I'm not using mine to manipulate people into giving me what I want." I hung up before she could respond. Joanna was watching from the doorway when I turned around, concern in her eyes. I walked over, pulled her close, kissed her like my life depended on it, pushed Carla's voice out of my mind, locked the door on that part of my past. "Everything okay?" Joanna asked softly. "Everything's perfect," I said. And standing there with my wife, surrounded by people who'd earned their place in my life, I meant it. 3 months after the wedding, I got a call from a social worker named Talia Hutchinson. Mr. Harris? I'm calling about Carla Harris. She listed you as her next of kin. I'm not her next of kin, I said flatly. We're estranged. Sir, she's in the hospital. She was assaulted at the shelter where she's been staying. She's asking for you. That's not my problem. Mr. Harris, she has no one else. Because she burned every bridge she had, I interrupted. That's not my responsibility to fix. She's your daughter. No. She's a 23-year-old adult who made catastrophically bad choices and is now facing the consequences. I'm not rescuing her from them. Sir, she was badly hurt. She needs family support. Then contact her mother, Sally Harris. She's in Arizona somewhere, probably with her latest boyfriend. Carla chose her mother's side 3 years ago. Let Sally deal with this. We've tried reaching her mother. The number we have is disconnected. Of course it was. Sally had probably changed numbers to avoid exactly this kind of responsibility. Still not my problem, I said. Mr. Harris, I understand you're angry, but this young woman is vulnerable and scared. She was vulnerable and scared 3 years ago when I needed her support after my wife's affair destroyed our family. She responded by telling me I deserved to be betrayed. So no, I'm not feeling particularly sympathetic to her vulnerability now. People make mistakes, and people face consequences for those mistakes. That's how life works. Carla needs to learn that lesson. By abandoning her when she's been assaulted, I'm not abandoning her. I already abandoned her 3 years ago when she told me she was glad her mother cheated. I'm just maintaining the boundary she established. She wanted nothing to do with me. She's getting her wish. Sir, update your records. I am not her next of kin. I am not her emergency contact. If she needs help, she can contact her mother, or one of her friends, or anyone else she chose over me. Good luck. I hung up before she could guilt me further. Joanna was watching from the kitchen doorway. Was that about Carla? Yeah, she's in the hospital. Got assaulted at her shelter. Oh my God! Joanna's hand went to her mouth. Are you going to go see her? No, I'm not. She made her choices. I'm not bailing her out every time life gets hard. Mike, she was assaulted. That's not a consequence of her choices. That's a violent crime. Which happened because she was living in a shelter. Which she was doing because her mother abandoned her. Which happened because she chose her mother's affair over her father. It's all connected, Joanna. Every choice has ripple effects. But you're her father. I was her father. I corrected sharply. Past tense. She ended that relationship when she looked me in the eye and told me I deserved to be cheated on. When she said she was glad her mother found someone who made her happier than I ever could. Those words don't just disappear because she's in trouble now. Joanna looked troubled but didn't argue further. Okay, I wanted to make sure you'd thought about it. I have. Every angle. And my answer is still no. That night, lying in bed, I stared at the ceiling and wondered if I was being too harsh. Carla had been assaulted. That was terrible, traumatic, something no one deserved regardless of their past mistakes. But then I remembered her face 3 years ago. The contempt in her voice when she said I'd driven her mother away with my coldness. The satisfaction when she told me she was glad Sally had found happiness elsewhere. The complete lack of empathy when I was drowning in betrayal. She'd kicked me when I was down, blamed me for being the victim of someone else's cruelty. Now she was down, and she expected me to rush in and save her? No. I rolled over, put my arm around Joanna, and pushed the guilt away. I wasn't being harsh. I was being consistent. Carla had established the rules of our relationship 3 years ago. That blood didn't matter. That loyalty was conditional. That parents could be discarded when they became inconvenient. I was just playing by her rules now. 6 months after the wedding, someone knocked on my front door. It was a Sunday morning. Joanna and I had slept in. The boys were at their dad's for the weekend. I was in the shower when I heard voices downstairs. When I came down in my bathrobe, toweling my hair, Carla was sitting on my couch. She looked worse than the last time I'd seen her. A black eye fading to sickly yellow, left arm still in a cast, moving like her ribs were broken or bruised. Her clothes hung off her frame like she'd lost 20 pounds she couldn't afford to lose. "What the hell is she doing here?" I demanded. Joanna stood near the kitchen looking conflicted. "She's hurt, Mike. I couldn't just leave her on the porch." "Yes, you could have. And you should have." I turned to Carla. "Get out." "Dad, please." "No. No pleading, no crying, no manipulation. Get out of my house. Now." "I have nowhere to go." "Then go to a shelter. Go to your mother. Go to social services. Go to hell for all I care. Just get out." "I can't believe you're this cold," she whispered, fresh tears starting. "I'm your daughter." "You were my daughter," I corrected, voice like ice. Past tense. You ended that relationship 3 years ago when you told me I deserved to be cheated on. When you chose your mother's affair over your father's pain. That was your choice. These are your consequences. I was wrong. I've said I'm sorry 100 times. You've said you're sorry because you need something. That's not remorse. That's manipulation. You show up when you're broke, when you're hurt, when you're desperate. Never once have you reached out just to apologize, just to own what you did. It's always tied to needing something from me. That's not fair. Life isn't fair, Carla. You taught me that when you blamed me for being the victim of your mother's affair. Joanna stepped forward carefully. "Mike, maybe we could at least—" "No," I said firmly, not looking away from Carla. "Joanna, I love you, but this is between me and the stranger sitting on our couch. And she's leaving." Carla stood slowly, clutching her ribs, face twisted in pain. "Fine, I'll go. But I need you to know that I meant my apology. I was wrong about everything. Mom was wrong. You didn't deserve what we did to you. You were a good father and a good husband, and we destroyed you for no reason. I know I didn't deserve it," I said quietly. "But knowing that doesn't mean I owe you forgiveness. It doesn't mean I owe you a relationship. It doesn't mean I owe you anything. So that's it? You'll just let me be homeless? Let me suffer while you live in your big house with your new family? You're not suffering because of me, Carla. You're suffering because of your choices. You chose your mother's affair over your father. You chose to abandon me when I needed you most. You chose to burn our relationship to the ground. Now you're upset that you can't just walk back across the ashes like nothing happened. I was 19. Stop using your age as an excuse, I roared, and she actually stumbled backward. You were 19, not 9. You knew right from wrong. You chose wrong. Stop hiding behind your age like it absolves you. She was crying hard now, clutching her cast to her chest like a shield. Here's the truth you need to hear, I said, voice dropping to deadly calm. I don't forgive you. I won't forgive you, and I don't feel bad about it. You destroyed something precious, a father's love for his daughter, and you did it deliberately, with full knowledge of what you were doing. That's not something you come back from. Ever. You're a monster, she whispered. No, I'm someone who refuses to be a victim anymore. Your mother made me a victim of her affair. You made me a victim of your cruelty. I'm done with that. Completely done. So leave. Build your own life. Figure your own shit out. But leave me the hell out of it. What am I supposed to do? I don't know, and I don't care. That's the point. You're not my problem anymore. You haven't been my problem since the day you told me I deserved betrayal. Carla picked up her pathetic duffel bag, tears streaming down her bruised face. I hope you can live with yourself. I sleep great, I said honestly. Better than I did 3 years ago when my daughter looked me in the eye and told me I deserved to be cheated on because I worked too hard providing for my family. Now get out. She limped toward the door, moving like every step hurt. I followed her and locked the deadbolt the second she crossed the threshold. When I turned around, Joanna was staring at me with an expression I couldn't quite read. That was harsh, she said quietly. It was necessary. Was it? She looked destroyed, Mike. Beaten down. Desperate. Good. Maybe rock bottom will finally teach her something Sally never did. That actions have real consequences. That you can't just destroy people and expect them to save you later. Mike. Joanna, I love you. But if you think I should forgive Carla, you're wrong. She doesn't deserve forgiveness. She deserves exactly what she's getting. The natural consequences of her choices. Joanna was quiet for a long moment, studying my face. Okay. I trust that you know what's right for you. What you need. Thank you. We didn't speak about it again that day. Life continued. Better than before, actually. My business landed a $30 million contract for a new hospital complex, the biggest project of my career. 3 buildings, state-of-the-art medical facilities, 18-month timeline, the kind of contract that set you up for early retirement if you wanted it. I didn't want it. I loved the work, loved building something tangible, something that mattered. Anthony got accepted to UCLA for engineering, full academic scholarship. The kid was brilliant, and watching him open that acceptance letter with Joanna crying happy tears beside him, that felt like family, real family. Caleb made varsity soccer as a sophomore, youngest player on the team. I went to his games, cheered from the stands, and he'd look up and wave at me like I actually mattered to him. Because I did. Joanna and I celebrated our first anniversary with a trip to Maui. Just us, no kids, no stress, no ghosts from the past. We spent a week on the beach, ate good food, made love like newlyweds, and talked about our future. Maybe expanding my business into commercial real estate development. Maybe Joanna scaling back her hours so we could travel more. It was perfect. Genuinely, completely perfect. I didn't hear from Carla again after that final confrontation. Didn't think about her much either. She'd become background noise, a chapter I'd closed and locked away. Until my mother called one last time. Carla's homeless, Michael, living on the streets downtown. I was in my office reviewing blueprints when the call came. I put down my pen slowly. That's unfortunate, I said. Unfortunate? My mother's voice cracked with fury. She's your daughter. She's sleeping in doorways, begging for money, and all you can say is unfortunate. Yes, because it is unfortunate. And it's also not my problem. How can you be so heartless? I'm not heartless, Mom. I'm protected. There's a difference. Carla made her choices. I'm simply respecting them by not interfering. She's going to end up dead in an alley somewhere. Then she should have thought about that before telling me I deserved to be betrayed by my wife, before choosing her mother's affair over her father's pain, before abandoning me at my absolute lowest point when I needed her most. She was a child. She was 19 years old. Stop infantilizing her. She knew exactly what she was doing when she sided with a cheater and told me it was my fault for working too hard to provide for my family. My mother was crying now. You're going to regret this, Michael. When she's dead and gone, you're going to live with that guilt forever. I regret plenty of things, Mom, I said, voice cold as steel. I regret marrying Sally and wasting 20 years on someone who valued her personal trainer more than her marriage vows. I regret giving Carla every advantage in life. Good schools, college tuition, a loving home, only to have her throw it all in my face when it mattered most. But I don't regret protecting myself now, not even a little bit. She's sick, Michael. She needs help. Then she should go to social services, go to a women's shelter, go to her mother in Arizona. But she's not coming to me. I made that crystal clear. What happened to you? You used to have compassion. Compassion? I laughed bitterly. You want to know what happened to my compassion? Sally killed it when she spread her legs for another man. Carla buried it when she told me I deserved that betrayal. I'm not the villain here, Mom. I'm the victim who finally learned to stop being victimized. You're choosing pride over your daughter's life. No, I'm choosing self-preservation over someone who's proven she'll destroy me the second it's convenient. There's a difference. My mother hung up without another word. We didn't speak for months after that. I didn't care. That evening, I told Joanna about the call while we sat on the back deck watching the sunset. Your mom called about Carla? She asked quietly. Yeah. Apparently she's homeless now, living on the streets. How do you feel about that? I thought about it honestly. Nothing. I feel nothing. Is that terrible? I don't know, Joanna said. Is it? She destroyed something in me 3 years ago. The part that would have dropped everything to help her. No questions asked. That part's dead now. And I'm okay with that. Joanna squeezed my hand. Then I'm okay with it too. We sat there in comfortable silence, watching the sun disappear below the hills. Somewhere downtown, Carla was sleeping in a doorway or under a bridge, and I went to bed in my comfortable home next to my loyal wife and slept perfectly fine. 5 years after that final confrontation with Carla, I was living my best life. My construction business was worth $15 million. $15 million. I'd started taking more time off, traveling with Joanna to places I'd only dreamed about, when I was killing myself working 60-hour weeks for a wife who was screwing her personal trainer. We'd been to Italy, Greece, Scotland. Next year, we were planning New Zealand. Anthony had graduated from UCLA with his engineering degree, landed a job at a top firm in San Francisco, making 6 figures right out of college. The kid was brilliant, respectful, everything a father could want in a son. Caleb was in his junior year at Stanford on a full soccer scholarship. Division I athlete, stellar grades, good head on his shoulders. He called me for advice more than he called his own father. Joanna and I renewed our vows on our 5th anniversary. Small ceremony at a winery in Napa, surrounded by friends and family who'd actually earned their place in our lives. People who valued us, who'd stood by us, who understood what loyalty meant. No Sally, no Carla, just people who mattered. I heard through the grapevine that Sally was on her 3rd marriage since our divorce, each one shorter than the last, like a countdown to her inevitable loneliness. She'd burned through the Arizona guy after 2 years. Apparently, he got tired of her constant need for validation and drama. Then came some lawyer she met at a yoga retreat. Lasted 18 months before he figured out what I'd known for years, that Sally was a black hole of neediness that no amount of attention could fill. Now she was married to some retired accountant 20 years her senior. Word was she was already miserable, already looking for the next thing to chase, because she'd never learned that happiness comes from within, not from whoever's sharing your bed. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. Carla? I heard less about her. My mother had finally stopped mentioning her after I made it crystal clear I didn't want updates, didn't want to know, didn't care what happened to her. But from what little filtered through anyway, small town, people talk, she'd gotten her life somewhat together. A job at some retail store, a tiny apartment in a rough part of town, basic stability. Not much, but something more than sleeping in doorways. She never reached out again after that final confrontation. Smart of her, honestly. She'd finally learned that some bridges, once burned, stay burned. One evening, sitting on my deck watching the sunset with Joanna beside me, cold beer in hand, she asked quietly, "Do you ever think about Carla?" "Sometimes," I admitted, because Joanna deserved honesty, but not with regret. More like acknowledgement that she existed once. Like remembering a house I used to live in, but don't anymore. Do you think you were too harsh? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No. I think I was exactly as harsh as I needed to be to protect myself. She made her choice when she told me I deserved to be betrayed. I made mine when I decided I was done being treated like garbage by people who should have loved me. We're both living with those choices now. Are you happy with your choice? I looked at Joanna, this incredible woman who'd stood by me through everything, who'd loved me without conditions, who'd never once made me feel like I wasn't enough. I thought about Anthony and Caleb, who'd accepted me into their lives and made me feel like a real father again. I thought about my thriving business, my loyal friends, my life built on a foundation of genuine respect and loyalty. Yeah, I said, and meant it completely. I'm happier than I've ever been, because I'm surrounded by people who value me, who don't treat me like I'm disposable, who don't tell me I deserve to be cheated on because I worked too hard to provide for my family. Good, Joanna said, squeezing my hand. What about Carla? I continued, taking a long drink. Last I heard, she's working retail at some clothing store, barely making rent every month, no college degree, no real prospects. She destroyed her future the day she chose her mother's affair over her father. And you know what? That's exactly what she deserves. That's pretty cold, Mike. No, that's justice. Real, actual justice. She wanted to stand with a cheater and tell me it was my fault? Fine. Let her live with that choice for the rest of her life. I owe her absolutely nothing. Joanna nodded slowly, understanding in her eyes. As the sun set, painting the sky brilliant orange and deep red, I felt genuinely at peace. You ever have one of those moments where everything just clicks into place? Sally was miserable, jumping from man to man like she was collecting baseball cards, never finding the happiness she'd destroyed our marriage chasing. Karma had caught up with her hard. Carla was struggling, working dead-end jobs, living paycheck to paycheck, dealing with the consequences of betraying her father at his lowest point. And me? I was thriving, successful beyond my wildest dreams, happy, surrounded by real love from people who'd proven they deserved it. That's what justice looks like when you stop being a victim and take control of your own life. That's what revenge tastes like when you live well instead of wallowing. Sweet. Absolutely sweet. I believe stories such as this find us for a reason. If this one touches you, please subscribe. I share a new one every day. In the meantime, there are 2 stories on the screen that are even better.